to the program, The Living Earth with me, Tracy Uziwe, the program that talks about environment, climate change, agriculture, and sustainable livelihood. How have you been related day in, day out to make sure that it's from a sustainable standpoint? In today's edition, we're going to be looking at agriculture, food production, and the inputs, the things that go into effective food production, fertilizer to be precise. We know that back in the days, early 60s, 70s, when the population has not yet exploded the way it has now, bush fallow system, they leave a particular plot of land after farming for a while and move to another one, and then natural manures and all that could sustain food production. But afterwards, population exploded, and this get to push more farmers into subsistence living, just to produce barely to sustain them and their families. And lately, it's been telling on almost everybody, food is becoming more and more expensive. And when that happens, it means it's becoming more scarce. Food production and what it used to be has seriously dwindled. So in this edition of the program, we're going to be looking at organizations, associations, government components that do one or two aspects of things to make sure that we up our game and our food production get back to what it is. Nigeria is being postulated to be the 5th most populous country in the world. So that population needs to be fed, because a population that cannot feed itself effectively is as well a slave to any other country that can supply their daily food need. So in today's edition, I have the president of Fertilizer Producers and Association of Nigeria in the person of Mr. Sadiq Kasim with me today. He is the president of Fertilizer Producers and Suppliers Association of Nigeria. We know that fertilizer play a key role to make up for the loss of fertility in the soil and make sure that bumper harvests are gotten each time the farmers go to the field or to their farms. So we'll be talking with him today to fill us in on what their association is doing, and generally how does this feed into the general focus of making sure that every Nigerian have food, enough food, and affordable food on their table at the end of the day. So it's nice to have you on
Thank you very much
today. Talk to us a bit about the association in general.
FEPSAN, that's Fertilizer Producers Association, Suppliers Association of Nigeria, is an association of businesses involved in the fertilizer space operating in Nigeria. It started many years ago, more than 20 years ago, when stakeholders in the fertilizer industry came together to form an association, especially as at that time, government actually is the biggest buyer or the biggest customer of fertilizer. So for them to be able to promote their businesses, for them to be able to also influence government in activities that relate to fertilizer, they came together. But over the years, what has happened is that there is a shift. What the association today aims to do is not just promote government patronage, but also promote how they, as an industry, come together to improve the space. Because from your introductory statement, you've mentioned Nigeria, over the years, the space is dwindling in terms of the size, probably because of the population, but more because productivity has declined. Now, why has that happened? It has happened simply because fertilizer use in Nigeria has always been very low. Even by African standards, we are still half of the Africa Fertilizer Declaration that happened in 2006 that required that farmers should be able to use at least 50 kilograms of fertilizer per hectare. Nigeria is still halfway to that from 2006 to date. That's almost 20 years ago. We have still not reached the minimum target. Countries like Tanzania, for instance, or Kenya have actually surpassed it. So we need to actually up our game to be able to increase fertilizer production, increase fertilizer use. And the second aspect you mentioned is our increasing population. By 2050, we will be the fifth largest or biggest in terms of population in the world. This population must be fed. And we have then food insecurity as it is today. We commend the government, we commend President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who in 2023, soon after he took over, actually declared food security as an emergency in this country. Now, why is that? Simply because though we have always been talking about security in this country, what we have not factored is putting food security as part of the total security architecture of this country. It is not about just fighting insurgents and fighting terrorists and others. It is also fighting hunger in the stomach. Because the hungry person, they usually say, is an angry person. The hungry person would obviously has nothing to lose even if he goes out to become violent. And so it became a mantra that we have to take Nigeria and make it food secure, one. Then food sovereignty is the second most important thing that we should target. So that aside, now as a fertilizer association, we came together and our objective is, as businesses, how do we grow the space? There is always something to sell. So it is for us to now keep producing soil-specific, crop-specific, ecology-determined kind of fertilizer that would encourage productivity. And with productivity, there would be abundance in the country in terms of food. The economic system would blossom. Just cast your mind back 5 years ago when we had COVID. The whole world closed down. Which sector of the economy brought us back out of the collapse? It's the agricultural sector. At least farmers continued to produce. We never had riots in terms of people queuing up to buy food or even fighting to get food. In spite of the global economy shutting down, we continued to feed ourselves. There was no crisis of food in the country. Why did that happen? Because farmers have built that resilience, and we know that with little encouragement, with a level playing field, with an economic environment that allows for people like us to support the productive system, things will continue to work its way. So we came as an association. Then about 7, 8 years, maybe 9 years ago, President Buhari, the former president, came up with an initiative called the Presidential Fertilizer Initiative. What was that? His idea was, if you recall his mantra, let us eat what we produce, let us produce what we eat. And by extension, that means that we should now start looking inwards for whatever we want. We can only go out if we don't have it. There was an understanding, a study that showed that with Nigeria's abundant resources, 60% of fertilizer raw materials needed for every blend of fertilizer is actually Nigerian, domiciled and in Nigeria. So why do we, before that time, import 100% of our fertilizer needs? He stopped it. He said, let's produce in Nigeria. As at the time he started this initiative, there were only about 4 or 5 active fertilizer plants in the country. That is, if you just keep aside Notore doing urea and Indorama, also with their limited capacities. However, when he started this program, today we have over 90 blending plants operating. Today, we have, apart from Indorama and Notori, Dangote had come on stream. Today, Nigeria is a net exporter of fertilizers, not only to Africa, but to the rest of the world. So this is happening. So there is actually a silent revolution happening, which we believe with consistent policy, things would keep growing. Recently, when President Tinubu visited Brazil on a state visit, one of the key things that was put on the table in the discussions between Nigeria and Brazil was fertilizer supply. The Brazilians are looking at how can we increase our fertilizer procurement from Nigeria. Why? Because fertilizer supply from Nigeria offers Brazil a strategic advantage. Globally, when you look at it, everywhere Brazil has to go and buy fertilizer, sometimes they get disrupted by global politics. If there is a problem in Eastern Europe, either the Russia-Ukraine war or something happening, there is a blockage. If there is something happening in the Middle East between Israel and the Arabs, it's blocked. If the Mediterranean is troubled, if something happens, their supply gets disrupted. But when you look at it, between Nigeria and Brazil is a straight line just across the Atlantic by flight 7 hours. I mean, that's an easy way. So they have realized that Nigeria should be our partner in the supply of fertilizer, so they put it on the table. Now, this is a potential growth, a potential thing that we need to start looking at, focusing.
My name is Dr. Mohammed Abubakar.
Ibrahim Musa Goni is my name.
My name is Dr. Isaac Adekunle Salako,
Honorable Minister of Environment,
Conservation National Park Service of Nigeria.
Minister of State for Environment, Federal Republic of Nigeria. I would like to invite you Nigerians and everybody worldwide to
keep
watching and
listening
listening to the
Living Earth.
Living Earth.
living.